Purvaa Sampath, the founder of director of Maya's Universe, is a graduate from Berklee College of Music and one of the few CBMT Board Certified music therapists and NMT neurologic music therapist in the country. Purva has had the opportunity to practice as a student music therapist in some of the top institutions like Perkins School for the Blind, Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, Boston Children's Hospital in Massachusetts. She has also worked with a variety of populations at A Place to Be, an award-winning expressive arts therapy organization. In Bangalore, India, she works as a music therapist with multiple institutions including Cadabams, a
Mm-hmm.
psychiatric hospital and residential facility, Fame India, which caters to individuals with neurodevelopmental disorders, and other organizations that work with the differently abled, and Nightingale's Trust for Alzheimer's and dementia care. She also teaches introductory courses on music therapy at Women's Christian College in Chennai and St. Xavier's College in Mumbai. Purva was also recognized for her work in music therapy by the Rotary Downtown Chapter's HR Pratibha Award for Women of Distinctive Vocation 2019. Welcome, Purva.
Thank you, Shreya.
Your bio itself is so fascinating.
It sometimes it's just a good reminder because it's so easy to get into that loop of, especially given the pandemic, it's so easy to feel like you're not doing enough or that you haven't moved as much as you would have liked to. And things have kind of just come to a halt. So sometimes it's just nice to remind yourself of the things that you have done in the past, and say that, okay, yes, you still have a lot to do. So thank you for that. It's been a while since I've heard someone read that out.
So, how has this quarantine been treating you?
I think, I mean, it definitely hasn't been easy, but I think what it has done is kind of remind me of all the things that I'm really grateful for. You know, I have a roof over my head, I have food on my plate, and I'm close to my family because I lived away from them for over 10 years and I just moved back in 2018. So I'm just really, really grateful to have been close to mom and dad and my brother, and just being around them, because I know that we would all have been miserable if we'd been in different parts of the world, unable to reach each other. So I think in terms of work, everything kind of just stopped overnight because as a music therapist, a lot of my work is in person. I think that was quite difficult to deal with because I get a lot of energy from the work that I do. But I think that has also given me the opportunity to look at what music therapy online looks like, and to be able to adapt to an online space, and also pushed myself to be on social media more like this. So I mean, there's always a good side to something that looks like it's a very disappointing phase. But yeah, I think just counting my blessings is the way to go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you've also been your bio as I already said, it's been so fascinating. So, what are some of the things that kept you going this quarantine?
I think writing is something that I really love, and I hadn't done a lot of in the last few years. And so since the day the lockdown began, that I started blogging again. So I did a series called Breaking the Chain, and that was just really interesting for me to do because it also gave me a way to express myself. And it sort of became therapy in its own way. So I had days when I wouldn't feel like getting out of bed, or I would just just go getting out of bed and taking a shower would feel like a big achievement. But this was one thing that I stuck to every evening. No matter what time it was, I made sure that I wrote before I went to bed. And I think having that one thing that kept me going would be that series. So yeah, that's how I got through the first 40 days of quarantine.
Wow, shall definitely. Well, what is it about?
So Breaking the Chain really just started off as a series, given that a lockdown is something that I haven't experienced in my lifetime before, and most other people in my generation, around my age group, haven't really experienced that, right? So I think it kind of just became a space where I was looking at what happened through that day and using that to talk about mental health, to talk about things like sharing the laundry, sharing the load at home, and just the disparity between the amount of work that women were doing versus the men, and started talking about music therapy itself and what that is, and it just became a space for me to talk about all the things that I'm really passionate about, and I know that it also did connect to a lot of different people, and they were able to relate to it too. So something that started off as a very personal thing for me became something that I could share with my friends on Facebook. So that's what that series is about. You can find it, on my page, Purvaa Sampath. You can just find me on Facebook, and you can find the series over there. They're all public posts.
Okay, amazing. I'll definitely check it out after this.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, um, so Purva, if I had to ask you to describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Oh, wow. Okay. I haven't done this in a while. Let's see. 3 words. I would say ambitious, um, warm, and connected.
Connected, how?
Connected, I think, more because a lot of the energy that I get and a lot of the relationships that I have comes from the kind of connections that I make with people. And on one hand, I'm quite selective about the people that I connect with in my personal life, but I think because of my profession, it's really pushed me to open up and connect to people in a very different way. And I often say this, that you can find me spending endless hours with people who are differently abled and enjoy it a lot more than I do with people who are neurotypical. And that just goes to say that people who are differently abled are very honest. There are no layers to them, and I, as much as I'm a music therapist and I'm working on goals that they have, for me, spending time with the differently abled is also extremely fulfilling. I think there's a lot that I've learned from them over the years. There's a lot that I continue to learn from them about how to be a good human being. So I think that connection is very important for me, not just because of the work that I do, but also because it's a good check for me to look at myself and to stay on track and to be a good human being. So I think staying connected with not just the people around me, but also my environment and the universe is a very big part of who I am.
Interesting. That's a very interesting insight to this. And yeah, so ambitious. Talking about ambitious, I think you have so many accolades to your name. You have already achieved so much. And my next question comes back to this. So, why did you choose taking up psychology, or more like, what exactly is it that you did in Berkeley that fascinated you to take up music therapy and psychology?
Well, so I studied music therapy. I didn't study psychology or music separately. I studied music therapy because it's a field in itself and a subject in itself too. When I was so I've been a musician and a dancer right from the age of 3. And it's a very typical thing of like growing up in a South Indian household where you start Carnatic music lessons on one side, and then you start Bharatanatyam on the other. And so I think I always sucked at sports. My hand-eye coordination is terrible, but performing arts is where I kind of found my haven growing up. And my mom's a dancer. My grandmother was a musician herself, and so it kind of ran in the family too. And when I was about 12 or 13, my Carnatic music teacher, Dr. Meenakshi Ravi, who is who has a PhD in counseling, and who at that time was actively practicing. She started using music in her counseling sessions, and then she started working with a few children and young adults who are differently abled, and she was teaching them music. And when I saw how a lot of their other areas of life, right, like daily living activities, cognitive abilities, physical abilities began to improve through learning music, I wanted to understand the science behind it. So I think that's where my curiosity for music therapy started. And then when I was done with high school, I realized that that is what I want to study. And I did my research and I found Berklee College of Music. And at that time, there were no courses really in India that was doing it. And, I was privileged enough to be able to have the opportunity to go and study in Boston and to go to Berkeley and do that. And so that's what I did.
Wow, that must have been quite a journey, right?
Absolutely.
Interesting. So how how did you decide that music therapy would not just help you but also others around you? As in, I've read an article about you. In your words, you call music therapy the magic of melody. So could you tell us a little more about how it works and why you think that it is an effective form of therapy?
Sure. So, there's a lot of research that's been done over the years in music therapy, and right now, music therapy is it's riding the wave of neuroscience, and so you have a lot of neuroscientists, neurologists, as well as neurologic music therapists working on looking at how music really affects the brain. So, music is one of the only activities that engages both your right and your left hemisphere. And if you see, research has proven that singers, right, so people that use a lot of lyrics, that remember a lot of lyrics, actually have a thicker and a stronger corpus callosum, which is the band of nerves that connects the two hemispheres of your brain. And over time, music has been proven to be a very effective activity when it comes to relearning things that might have been affected because of a traumatic brain injury or a stroke. Right? So, right from speech and language to movement, music has been able to address all of these different areas when it comes to neuro rehab. And so, I think when we all listen to music, we call it a universal language. We have associations that we make with it. We have connections and memories associated with music. But in reality, every time you listen to music or you do something as simple as clap and sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, you're giving your brain a full body workout. It's like doing, your cardio and your strength training all at once. And so I think that's why music has proven to be as effective as it is, and that's why music therapy in itself is such a valid profession, as well as a career, and it's recognized worldwide. And different countries are at different developmental phases when it comes to the profession itself. But India really is. I'm so glad to be back here, and I'm glad I made that decision to move back and to work here instead of staying in the States, because I think people are open, people are receptive, people are really looking forward to having more to life other than just your traditional therapies or your special education. And music therapy is something that can deliver that.
Interesting. So, how exactly does music therapy, how is it different from other forms of therapy?
So
In the
in
sense,
music therapy, oh, sorry, go on.
no, no, please continue.
Oh, so music therapy, like if you compare it to talk therapy, right? In talk therapy, language, talking or speaking is your primary mode of communication. It's your primary mode of working through whatever goals your client has. Whereas in music therapy, it's music. So, a lot of people ask me about, oh, what kind of music can we listen to, for migraines, or what kind of music helps children who are autistic. And I say it's not about the kind of music, it's about the elements of music. It's about how you are manipulating the different elements of music, and it's about how you are adapting that to the needs of your client. So it's not about it's not a prescriptive form of therapy, right, where you say that, okay, if this is your issue or this is your diagnosis, then this kind of music is going to work for you. Instead, it has a lot to do with the relationship between the therapist and the client. It has a lot to do with the different kinds of interventions that you're using with your clients. So for some, it could be songwriting. For some, it could be using instruments. For some, it could be singing. It could be lyric substitution. It could be so many different things. It could be using movement and music together, or art and music together. But in music therapy, your primary mode of communication, or the vehicle that you're using to bring about change, is music.
Wow, that's great. And according to the bio that I read and the things you have done, you also seem to have worked with a lot of individuals with neurodevelopmental disorders and disability. So how has that been? Tell us a little more about your work with them.
Sure. So I think, depending on the diagnosis, and more than the diagnosis, really depending on the individual, each of them have their own set of goals or challenges, right? And so any client that I begin to work with in my assessment session, there are 5 broad areas that I look at. So I look at the challenges that they have when it comes to physical goals, cognitive goals, behavioral goals, social goals, as well as emotional goals. So in these 5 areas, once I recognize the challenges that they're having in each of these areas, then what I do is customize a treatment plan for them. Right. So there are various interventions that I can use, and an intervention that you use for say a social goal or a communication goal with one individual can also be customized and used as a emotional goal for somebody else, right? So it's not so much about the intervention itself as much as it is how you are kind of modifying it and customizing it for the need of the client. And I have a lot of instruments that I use in my session. I love using various percussion instruments, like shakers, drums, the kabasa, metallophones, xylophones. The guitar is usually what I use, and because it's easy to travel with, and it's easy to kind of pull out and like play simple chords. And I'm a vocalist. As a musician, I'm a vocalist primarily, so I use a lot of my voice too. And so yeah, it really just is using various elements of music, various techniques in music. So yeah.
Wow. I mean, I definitely would want to like try this out because this seems so interesting. And I'm pretty sure that it also, along with therapy, I'm pretty sure that it also might be a lot of fun doing this because you also are a musician, so doing something with music and mental health. It's the combination of both
Yes,
sounds
it
very.
is.
So, coming to talking about interventions and mental health, day-to-day lives, be it personal
Absolutely.
or professional, we tend to face a lot of anxiety, stress, and varied emotions which end up negatively impacting us. So, how does one identify these and work on them?
So it would really depend on the kind of person that you are, right, and what your mode of expression is. So for some people, ranting or venting to a friend is a great way to express themselves. Whereas for some other people, when they're going through a lot of personal stress, they tend to kind of look inward, or they tend to close down, or kind of retreat into their shell. So it's important to, one, recognize what your current coping mechanisms are, right? Because a lot of if you really look at the root and or the cause for a lot of mental disorders, you see that there is a lot of repression that has happened instead of expression. Or even if there is expression that's happening, it's not happening in a way that's healthy for you and for the people around you. And so I think first of all, it's very important for you to understand what kind of person you are. Are you somebody that feels comfortable or feels lighter when you share, or are you someone that tends to withdraw when things get hard? Like, we all have so many associations with music. We have music that reminds us of good times when we were younger. We have music that reminds us of our first love, music that reminds us of our times, with friends. And so I think it's really good to have multiple playlists. If you look at my Spotify account, I have a playlist for very specific things. I have a playlist when I want to cry. I have a playlist when I'm feeling like a badass and I want to like work out and it motivates me. I have playlists, Tamil playlists, because that's the language I speak. So I have a whole bunch of Tamil songs that reminds me of my childhood. I have a lot of Hindi songs that reminds me of time with my friends. And so I think creating playlists for yourself that will help you be able to cope with the emotions that you're currently feeling is a great way of very simply being able to use music in your life as a coping mechanism. And I will also say that never underestimate the power of a good cry. A lot of people, and things are changing, things are definitely changing, but the popular belief is that crying or being vulnerable is a sign of weakness, when in reality being able to cry is one of the most cathartic things that you can do. And it's one of the most relieving things that you can do when you have a lot in mind. And so make that playlist that's going to make you cry. Like, have a good cry when you're stressed out, because it releases so many of your pent up emotions, and is a great way to just be able to hit the reset button almost. That's how it works for me. So yeah.
These are like some really interesting ideas that you've given to people, and I completely agree with the whole playlist idea. And other than these, what are some healthy coping mechanisms that you would recommend to someone who is going through stress in their everyday life?
I think one thing that has really helped me, even though I have a lot of starting trouble when it comes to it, is movement. And one of the things that that a professor said to me in a class was that we always tend to set ourselves up for failure when it comes to personal goals, right? So let's say that weight loss is a goal. You always say, okay, fine, from Monday I'm going to like work out 5 times a week, I'm going to like go on a diet, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and you create so many expectations, or you give yourself so many things to do, that you're able to sustain it for a day, for a week, for maybe 2 weeks. But then the minute you slip up, your motivation takes a huge hit, right? So being able to set up smaller goals for yourself, of saying, you know what, okay, maybe I'm not going to run a 5K, but I will get 5K steps in, right? Even if it's just walking, I'm going to find some time to move. So commit to that idea of doing whatever you can, just a little bit, instead of kind of setting it in stone and saying, okay, I have to do this much, I have to be able to achieve this much, I have to lose like this much weight in a month or in a week. And so I think baby steps, and being very aware of where you are at, and allowing yourself to slip up every now and then is something that that is a very healthy way of coping with what it is that you're going through. And for some people, if you're unable to manage your stress, and even getting out of bed seems like a task for you, acknowledge that. Acknowledge it, and know that it's okay, and that you're not alone. In this last 6 months, everybody's lives has been affected in some way or the other because of the pandemic. And so understand that we're all going through something called collective trauma, right? This is the first time in our lives that we're experiencing something like this. And it's okay if you're sitting at home and you're not as productive as you want to be. And it's okay if you're not, doing all those things that you kept putting off, saying, I'll do it when I have the time. Be kind to yourself, and know that this is hard and you are coping with it the best that you can, and set goals for yourself that you truly believe is achievable. And if you're, and instead of saying I'm going to do it 6 times a week or 7 times a week, say I'm going to start with 3. And if you're able to do 5 times a week, then great. You've gone above and beyond the goal that you've set for yourself. But set realistic goals for yourself, and baby steps, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And but when one can apply these to themselves, at what point at what point do you realize that this is the time I need professional intervention? This is the time I need therapy. So how exactly can someone identify that particular moment?
Um, well, let me speak what it's been like personally for me, right? Because I feel
Mhm.
like uh, that is the best way to really talk about what point is it that you reach out for help. And I think it's very different from person to person. No two people are alike. You could be going through similar issues. You could come from the same cultural background, but that doesn't equate your problems to somebody else's. And for me, when I realized that I needed to reach out and I wanted to talk to somebody that was a professional, was when I realized that I had so many kind of kept going on in loop. And when that happened, I realized that I wasn't getting anywhere. Right? I had all these plans. I kept wanting to motivate myself, but somewhere I felt like I was unable to motivate myself internally. I was unable to do something as simple as go for a walk that day, or get out of bed and take a shower that day. And so I think it's really important to one, be aware of yourself and be aware of what status quo is for you. So what do you like, what are things that you enjoy, who are the people that you like talking to, who is your support system. And when you realize that the things that you are usually motivated about, or the things that comes to you easily, things that you enjoy doing, are things that you find yourself struggling to do, and you feel like you have so many thoughts that you're unable to express yourself in ways that you've expressed yourself before, maybe at that time it's a good idea to reach out to somebody professional. A lot of the times people think that therapy has a huge stigma around it, and it's very important for you to be able to find a therapist that you are comfortable with. At the end of the day, each therapist has their own approach, and who they are as people also plays into the way they are as professionals. And so, if you've been to a therapist before and it hasn't been a good experience, then it's not so much about therapy not being okay for you, or therapy not being your cup of tea. Maybe it's just that the therapist that you met wasn't a good fit for you. So give yourself another chance. Talk to your friends, talk to people around you that might be able to recommend therapists for you. But know that it's important that you find the right fit, and therapy is what you want it to be. Ideally, a therapist's job is not to give you advice or tell you how to live your life, or how to manage your stress. A therapist's job is to be able to help you look inward and figure out what works for you and what doesn't, and to help you motivate yourself at the end of the day. So a therapist facilitates and a therapist guides. A therapist doesn't say this is right and this is wrong, or tells you what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, you're right. And since you mentioned about the stigma and the shame attached to mental health, India, being a country, still has a huge element of log kya kahenge, it's all in your head, get over it, kind of a perception about mental health. And let alone speaking about it, acknowledging mental health and seeking help for it is considered a big deal. So,
Yep.
as a music therapist, how do you recommend that we as a society work towards a change?
I think any kind of change begins in your own community. It begins with your own family, and if we really want to change the minds of 1.2 billion people, it starts with starting that conversation with your closest friends, with your family at home. And I also think that there are, when it comes to LK, लोग क्या कहेंगे, there are two things. So one is, you have, first of all, India is a country that has one of the lowest average ages in the world right now. I think in 2018, our average age was 27, which is quite young. The millennials in India today are that transitional generation between the way things were done and then looking at how things can be done differently. Right from politics to talking about religion to talking about health. Social media has also given us a platform where we can now have our own voices, where it's not really monitored, or you're not told what to think just from your traditional media, like TV and movies and print media. And so I think it's really important for us then to also understand that there's a huge barrage of information that's coming your way because of social media. And it's important for us to understand what is verified and certified information versus what is an opinion. And so when it really comes to mental health and you want to start that conversation, you want to learn more about what mental health is, you want to figure out, or you want to find somebody that you can talk to about that, really look for professionals who are talking about it. Look for pages or look for websites where you know that the information that you're reading is credible, if you're looking to educate yourself. And also, if you're looking to find support systems, if you're looking to find a safe space, there are so many different people. It's one, important to know where you're getting your information from. Two, it's important to start that conversation with people that you feel comfortable with. I know that mental health, it's not easy to sit down at dinner and talk to your parents about mental health if that's something you've never done before, or if you know that they have a certain mindset about it. And also, I think somewhere it's really important to realize where you want to invest your efforts in when it comes to mental health. Would you rather invest your effort in trying to change the mind of that uncle or that aunt who think that depression is something that you can just get over, or would you rather invest that time and energy with your teenage cousin who is still open-minded, who still has that ability to be able to understand what mental health is, or who is open enough to learn about a new perspective? So I very strongly believe that change comes from education, right? One is educating yourself, two is educating the community around you. And it's okay if you have multiple conversations with your parents or with your uncles and aunts or even friends where you agree to disagree. Agreeing to disagree is still a good place to
Absolutely.
be in. You've at least sowed the seed for them to think about something beyond what they believe in. So trust in that process. No, it's not going to happen overnight, but know that the only thing that matters when it comes to really creating mental health awareness is consistency and persistence at the end of the day.
Powerful words, Purva. Yeah, definitely. I think if this generation of youth is consistent with their voices being so vocal on social media, using all sorts of technological platform to voice out their opinion, and I'm pretty shocked actually that so many people have finally started talking about mental health after the whole Sushant Singh Rajput incident. And in a way, it is, I feel, a great step towards mental health and awareness. And I just want you to, like, is there any message, a strong message that you would want to specifically recommend to this generation of youth as to how to proceed with further empowering people about mental health and enlightening them about mental health?
I think I'm going to go back to this statement because it's just proven to be so true in my own life and in my own community, which is change begins with you. And I think being aware of your own beliefs, your own prejudices, and how that has impacted your life, how that is impacting the lives of the people around you, and the way you communicate with them is so important. And a lot of, like, for me, I didn't realize the kind of beliefs that I had, or how ingrained some of the things that we grew up hearing are, until I studied to become a therapist, where it's necessary for us to work on our own beliefs, and that too I did it in a different culture, so it was that much more obvious for me. I think I would say that is the first thing. So change begins with yourself. So look inward to begin with, and look at where you are, what your beliefs are about mental health. And before you proceed to talk about it, or to before you proceed to want to bring that change into your community and the people around you. The second thing that I would say is, I call it in Tamil, you have something called Ayyo Pavam, or in Kannada, it's Ayyo Papa, and probably the equivalent in Hindi would be Are Bechara, right? So stop feeling sympathy, turn that into empathy. Right, the difference between sympathy and empathy is that sympathy is when you feel sorry for someone, whereas empathy is when you relate to someone. The first step empathetic is that other person's going through. You, no matter how much you try, no matter how much you sit and listen to them, no matter how much you read about the diagnosis that they have, read about depression or anxiety, the truth is you don't know what they're going through. So start by admitting that you don't know what they're going through, right? And always ask how you can help, instead of assuming that this is what you can do to help. And that itself is just such a huge it's such a huge thing that you can do for somebody that's going through stress, or going through depression or anxiety, or any kind of mental health issue that they're dealing with. So those are the two things that I would say. First, look inward, look at what you need to change about yourself, and then to ask and empathize instead of sympathize.
Wow, I wish I could write that down somewhere, but I'm definitely like saving this live and then sharing it again so that people can hear it, anyone who's missed it. So, as we speak about the youth, this entire lockdown, a lot of people have adapted a lot of new hobbies and like expressed themselves through art or music, or some people have learned instruments, and people have been experimenting all this while. And we at Sakshi, we believe in the power of creative expressions, art being a way to express your voice and your emotions. We encourage our Rakshins. Sakshi has a Rakshin project where we're working with 40 lakh students across India, and we encourage them, the student community of ours that strives towards prevention of child sexual abuse, to express themselves in the form of creative arts, creative expression. So, how do you think that creative expressions or art therapy makes an impact on mental health, and how can it help people?
Um, I think any kind of expressive art therapy, right? Be it dance, be it visual arts, be it music, or even be it drama, is a way to be able to express yourself without necessarily having to use words. And it's almost a very non-confrontative way of expressing yourself. And it's also a way of expressing what's going on in your subconscious. A lot of the times I will wake up with a song stuck in my head, or sometimes when I sit down to draw, there are certain colors that I'm drawn to, or there are certain images that I'm drawn to, or even if I'm moving, right? There are days when I want to move in a certain way. There are days when I want to move in different ways. And I think all of this has a lot to say about what it is that we're really dealing with. And while I do have a lot of colleagues in the expressive arts therapy field who are brilliant art therapists and dance and movement therapists, I personally can speak for music therapy in itself. And music therapy is a very non-confrontative form of therapy, where you don't really have to sit and come to terms with something that you're going through, but you can still express what you're going through by listening to a song, or by singing along to a song, or by even just creating music on your own. And so I think the reason expressive arts therapy has the kind of reach and the kind of power that it does is because it gives you an ability to go beyond words, and it gives you a way to express yourself that is very personal, unique to you. No two voices are ever going to sound the same, and no two pieces of music, no matter how similar they might sound, are ever going to be the same. So it gives you an opportunity to really own the journey that you're going through, own your emotions, own your form of expression, and also helps you validate whatever it is that you're going through and dealing with.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Like, I mean, so we at Sakshi, we encourage our Rakshins to make art and
Mhm.
express via art about what they feel or what they want to say about prevention of child sexual abuse, which is one of the main causes that we are working towards as an organization. And the kind of art that we get, it's just been so fascinating. Some have submitted poetry, some have submitted drawings, paintings, audio visuals, and it just it a simple art form can depict a lot, right? So what are some of the interesting forms of art therapy that you could recommend to our viewers?
I think any of the expressive art therapies, which is mainly four different. So you have music therapy, you have dance and movement therapy, you have art therapy, and you have drama therapy. So I think if you know what form of expression you feel most comfortable with, or you feel most connected with, any of these forms of expressive art therapies is a great way to be able uh, to one, explore and understand yourself better, and to also be able to express yourself better. And I think for someone that doesn't know what it is that they're really good at, or can't really point out, or might be interested in all four, expressive arts therapy in itself is also a form of therapy, which has all of these four modalities that you can work with along with your therapist. But what I will say is, when you are looking for an expressive arts therapist, just make sure that they're a credible therapist. Make sure that they come recommended, or look them up, read about them, understand a little bit more about the kind of work they're doing, and then have a session and see how that feels. And again, I said this before and I'll say it again: make sure that you find the right therapist for yourself.
All right. Thank you so much, Purva, for joining us today, and also speaking about your personal journey, your personal experiences, supporting us in our cause to fight child sexual abuse and gender-based violence. More power to you and people like you who encourage mental health or anything that comes and helps people. Um, I would just like to tell everybody who's watching that if you could donate even a small amount, that would do a lot of people, a lot of help. So if you can head to our bio and you'll find a link tree to our keto campaign. Um, and also every Sunday, Purva, including you, Sakshi conducts a preview webinar
Oh,
to
lovely.
prevent child sexual abuse. So if any of you want to be a part of it, the link is in our bio. You should definitely come, join, listen, and implement it and be a preventer or a Rakshin. So thank you so much again,
Thank
Purva.
you so much for having me, Shreya. And I think you guys are doing a great job. And I'm so glad to have met you, and to have had this conversation with you. So thank you for having me.